Okay, I had a question on how to solve this problem. It is kind of a little bit of a interesting problem. You got to be very careful with your timing of your cash flows in order to understand what's going on. So normally when you have to be careful of your timing or cash flows, it's a good idea to draw a cash flow diagram. So it says it's the end of 2021, and you won the lottery. So these are all end of period problems, end of period. So it might be helpful to go ahead and just move all this down and say 2021 is $0, right? So these are the cash flows that you get at the end of the year. Well, let me see. You know what? I mean, I'm going to go Control Z. I'm going to do it a different way. So it's the end of 2021. These cash flows are assuming they're at the end of 22, right? Because it says to be paid at the end of a year. So this is a year later. So you won the lottery at the end of 21, which is the beginning of 2022. This cash flow is the end of 2022. So you got to be very careful about how you read this. So if you do a cash flow diagram, it might make a little bit more sense. So if we go in here and we'll draw like a thicker line, and we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's a cash flow here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cash flows. So we could take these. So this is at the end of 2021. This is the end of 2022, and so on, right? So we could take these across, and we're all the way to the end of 2026. So let's draw those cash flows in. So I'm going to go draw border. So we have a cash flow here, cash flow. We have, 5 positive cash flows at the end of each one of these years. And we want to know what's the present value of those. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to go present value is question mark, right? So we want to know what the present value is of that. Okay. And we know these cash flows. I'm going to show you little tricks. I don't have to type all these. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll highlight where I want those. I want to transpose them. Now one thing I could do, I could just take these, I could right click and go copy, and then right click and go transpose. That'll put them in. That's probably the easiest way to do it. But sometimes you want to keep the formulas in there. If there's a formula, that won't work. Like these have been typed in. There's a formula, then you got to do it a different way. You would actually have to highlight them, and then you go equals transpose. And then you highlight the 5 that you want to transpose. And here's a trick. This is called an array formula or matrix formula. Whenever you put in a matrix formula, you just can't hit enter. You have to hit control and then shift and then enter. And it transposes them. Okay. So let me put that formula in there. So sometimes that's necessary if like I said, if you have numbers, transposing works real good. But if there's formulas to get those numbers, you can't just highlight them, right click, and transpose. You got to put an equation to do that. So anyway, that's a little bonus information for you. All right, so this is what's going on. So we have the end of each year, 22. You could say a lot of times it says in the year. You would put it at the end of year too. So it says in 2022. If you don't really know your put, you just put it at the end of 22. That's kind of the language of finance. That's kind of how you do it. All right, so now we know what we have. And so let's go ahead and just copy these cash flows down. And we're going to find the present value of each cash flow. Now, the first way I'm going to do it, I don't want to have numbers here. I just want to have the period. How many periods it is from when I started. So I'll just go, let's say, I don't know, we'll go period. And we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you'll see why I do that. So now I'm going to go up the present value of those cash flows. And so I'm going to go equals present value. And the rate is 14%. Now, 14% I don't want it to move, so I can either type $signs or hit F4 to make it an absolute. So it won't move when I copy this down. I don't want it to go to here, to here, to here, to here. So I hit that. The number of periods, in this case, is 1 period for this cash flow. And I'm going to skip a payment. This is, even though it looks like a payment up here, it's actually, we're taking these each as individual future values, right? So this is a future value. Now remember, see how this arrow is pointing down? So if I do this on Excel, if I put a positive $1,400 in, I'm going to get a negative present value for it. So to avoid that, I could put a negative in the front of this, or I could make this cash flow negative in order to get a positive. So I'm going to go negative this. That's just so I get a positive answer. And then if I hit enter, so this $1,400 discounted back 1 year at 14% is so you could look at it this way. What is $1,400 worth to me in 1 year? If someone's going to give me $1,400 in 1 year, what's it worth to me now? If I require 14% on my money, 14% return on my money. Makes sense? So the higher this gets, the lower this gets. So if I change this to 16%, it's going to get lower because the money, it's like inflation, right? The higher the inflation, the less your money is worth in the future. Okay? So now that I've done this, since I put this dollar sign, I made it stick here. I want these two to move as I copy it down. Now all I have to do is just drag this down and it'll do them all. Okay? And then I can go here, the present value, whoops, cancel. I can put the present value in here. It's, now here's a little trick. I could go equal sum, but actually there's something here called auto sum up here. So I can click on auto sum. And it's asking me, is this what you want to sum? Yes, it is. So I'll hit enter. Yeah, so that's my answer. Oh, a more advanced way to do it on Excel. So I'm going to do alternate solution. Maybe I'll call it NPV solution. Okay, so the NPV solution, the way it works, NPV stands for net present value, so it's perfect for all these. So normally, you use net present value for capital budgeting, and that's for a future chapter, so this is like a little bit more advanced, but it's very quick. So NPV works if you have cash flows out starting 1 year from now. What is the present value of those? So the net present value the net present value in Excel is kind of defined a little bit different. I don't want to explain it too much, but the way it works, I'll explain that more later. It's going to be more useful later. But the way you use it here, you don't include any cash flows in year 0. All right. So it always assumes starting in the first period, second period. So this is perfect for this. So I go NPV, and I go equals NPV, and all you do is just highlight your cash flows. Oh, I forgot. Sorry. Got to put the rate in first. It has to know what you're discounting them at. So I go rate, comma, and I get the same answer. Okay. So you have to understand how NPV works. So you got to use that a little bit carefully. But basically, what I'm trying to tell you is, the cash flow has to be like if you had a cash flow. If you didn't have a cash flow, if you skipped a year, you'd have to put 0 in for that. Otherwise, it's going to think. It's not going to understand it has to know the timing of this. Another one is called XNPV, and that actually keeps track of it even with the dates. So there's a lot of sophisticated stuff, but we're learning let's learn how to crawl before we learn how to walk, right? So, but this actually is kind of nice to double check it to see if it works. So one thing I just realized with this book, if you take the dollar formatting off and you copy it across, you don't have to remove the dollar when you paste in the answer, right? So for part 2, part 3, part 4, you would just change this. I don't remember what part 2 was. It was 16%, and then you just copy that answer in. And you just could say, now you don't have to do this problem a bunch of times. You could just maybe make a note and just change the percent for answer to other parts. Something like that. Just leave me a little note. Put it in color, maybe green, just so I see it. That way you don't have to go ahead and, it's very, why do you want to do it 3 times when all you have to do is just change your percent for part 2 and 3, right? So, what was it again? It was really 14%. All right, so basically, as this number goes up, so what if this was 60%? well, then those cash flows are not worth anything to me, right? So as this goes up, oh, it's of 100%. So the higher the interest rate is, the less it's worth. So credit card interest rates are like 29%, right? So the 29%, those are only worth $4,100. So anyway, so that's how that works. I'm gonna go ahead and change that back to 14%. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not going to give you the Excel file because I want you to do this on your own. So hopefully that helped. And if you have any other questions, make sure you email me. Bye.